Hello, and welcome to today's episode of In the Moment. I'm your host, Michael Clark, certified life coach, former therapist, and owner of Clark Coaching Services. I was a therapist for 8 years of my career and have been a life coach for almost 2 years now. And I just want to give back and share my knowledge and experience with you to try to help navigate this thing we call life. Thank you in advance for listening, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey everyone. Welcome back to In the Moment. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm really glad you found your way in today. And wherever you are right now, driving, walking, sitting in your kitchen, folding laundry, staring at the ceiling, I just want to say I'm honored you're spending this time with me. Now, I'm going to say this right up front about today's topic. It can be controversial, not because love is controversial, but because people have opinions about what love is supposed to look like. And the moment your relationship does not match the default script, whether that's interracial, same-sex, non-binary, polyamorous, culturally different, religiously different, suddenly you're not just in a relationship, you're in a debate. You're a conversation you didn't ask to be in. You're in other people's projections. So my intention today is not to argue politics. It's not to convince anyone. My intention is to do what I do here with every episode, to slow life down, to talk about what people actually go through emotionally, mentally, relationally, when love flips the script. And if you're listening and thinking, finally, someone is saying this out loud, or I don't even know how I feel about this topic, or I'm in one of these relationships and I'm tired, or I'm not brave, I'm not loud, I'm just trying to love someone and survive the noise. Just know you are not alone. And you don't have to be fearless for your love to be valid. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to say one more thing, and I want to say this with care. I'm going to talk about stereotypes, cultural biases, family pressure, religion, and divorce, because these are real stressors, and this is real life. But I'm not here to disrespect anyone's culture, anyone's faith, anyone's family system. I'm here to talk about what happens when those systems collide with your heart. So take a breath with me. Really, actually take a breath. And let's talk. One of the hardest things about being in a relationship outside the standard template is that you don't just get to be a couple. You get treated like you're making a statement. And that's exhausting because most couples are not waking up thinking, how can we change society today? They're waking up thinking, it's almost the first of the month. We have to pay rent soon. Can you pick up eggs on your way home from work today? Don't forget to call your mom. It's her birthday tomorrow. I feel blessed that we have one another. I love you. You know, the human stuff. But when you're in an interracial relationship or same-sex relationship or a poly relationship, sometimes people stop seeing your humanity and they start seeing your relationship as a category. And categories come with stereotypes. So let's name a few realities. I personally have been in interracial relationships since I was in my late teens. And even though I have seen society grow, there is still more growth that can be accomplished. As recently as 5 years ago, my now ex partner and I would still get looks walking into an establishment because I was a Black man and she was a Caucasian woman. Even with her family, who I never met, she knew I would not be accepted due to the color of my skin and the stereotypes that went along with that. How many kids does he have, and by how many women? How many times has he been in jail? What drugs is he on? Interracial couples often deal with people staring, assumptions about power, money, status, family discomfort, sometimes outright racism, and pressure from both sides. Why aren't with you with your own people? Are you trying to prove something? But interracial couples are not the only ones that deal with inequality and judgment. Same sex couples often deal with being erased, like, oh, you're just friends, and identity concealment, religious judgments, family grief that sounds like love but feels like rejection, safety concerns depending on where you live, living on the defensive due to expectations of rejection. And polyamorous relationships often deal with assumptions that it's all chaos, assumptions that nobody is committed, people treating it like entertainment, pressure to explain yourself constantly, being treated like your relationship is only about sex. And honestly, judgment, even from people who are otherwise open minded. And here's the part that does not get said enough. Even if you're confident in who you are, being exposed to that much social pressure over time does something to your nervous system. It creates hyper awareness. It creates that feeling of needing to have your head on a swivel. It creates that feeling of, what are we walking into today? So if you feel tired before the dinner even starts, or anxious before the family visit, or like you're always bracing for impact, that makes sense. That's not weakness. That's your body responding to an environment that sometimes feels emotionally unsafe and physically unsafe. And one more thing, sometimes what hurts the most isn't the loud hate, it's the quiet comments, the jokes, the side eye, the I'm just asking questions, the what will people think, the what about the kids, and the oh, it's just a phase. Those are not neutral statements. Those are little cuts, and repeated little cuts can become a wound. Now, before we go to family and culture, we have to talk about something deeper, because the hardest part often is not what people say, is what you start saying to yourself. So this is where a lot of people suffer quietly. The external judgment is one thing, but the internal conflict, that's where people spiral. And it often sounds like this: I love my partner, but I feel guilty. I know what my heart wants, but I'm scared of losing my family. I'm happy, but I can't fully relax. I feel free, but I feel ashamed at the same time. I don't want to choose, but it feels like I'm being forced to. And that internal conflict does not mean you're weak. It means you're human. Because in many cultures and many families, love is not framed as follow your heart. Love is framed as loyalty, duty, tradition, family reputation, religion, obligation, and sacrifice. So when you love someone outside of what your system expects, it can feel like you're not just choosing a partner, it can feel like you're choosing a whole new life. And sometimes it feels like you're choosing life at the cost of belonging. And that's real grief. And people don't talk about that grief enough because the public conversation is black and white. Either be proud, be strong, don't care what anyone thinks, or how dare you do that to your family? But real life is rarely that clean. It's rarely that black and white. Real life is I love my family and I love my partner. I want peace and I want freedom. I want to honor my culture and I want to honor myself. So if you're in that place where it feels complicated, I want to speak directly to you. You don't have to simplify your feelings to deserve support. You don't have to be 100% certain to deserve compassion. You don't have to be brave every day. Some days you're going to feel strong. Other days you're going to feel tired, numb, resentful. That does not mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're carrying something heavy. Some people will tell you to just stop caring what anyone thinks. But that's not realistic for most humans. We're wired for belonging. And when belonging is threatened, the body reacts. So the goal is not always stop caring. Sometimes the goal is stop abandoning yourself, stop editing, stop performing. That pressure to hide part of yourself can lead to anxiety, depression, irritability, disconnection, and emotional shutdown. So, a gentle question I'd ask is this: what are you hiding right now? And also, what is that hiding doing to you? Now, let's talk about culture and family, because this is where things often get really intense. Family can be one of the greatest sources of love and one of the greatest sources of pressure at the same time. And it's important to understand something. In many cultures, marriage and relationships are not seen as individual choices. They're seen as family decisions. They're tied to community, honor, religion, lineage, expectations, and sometimes even survival. So when someone says, I don't want you marrying outside the culture, or I don't support same sex marriage, or this is not what we do, they may believe they're protecting something sacred. But here's the painful truth: what feels like protection to the family can feel like rejection to the person living it. And sometimes that rejection is direct, and sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's silence, distance, withdrawal, passive aggressive, or denial. And the reason this hits so hard is because humans don't just need romantic love, we also need family belonging. So when you're forced into a choice, family or partner, it can feel like no matter what you choose, you lose. In many traditional family systems, including many Indian families, for example, but also many religious communities, many immigrant communities, many tight knit cultural communities, There can be intense expectations around marrying within the culture. And when someone marries outside of it, the family may respond with distance. Sometimes that distance is temporary. Sometimes it's long term. Sometimes it's conditional. And what I want to name is this: even if you believe in honoring culture, it still hurts to be emotionally cut off. And people often feel two things at once. One, I understand why my family feels this way. And two, I cannot live my life for them. That conflict stems not only due to cultural dissonance, but in the other relationship dynamics I mentioned earlier, including interracial, same sex, and polyamorous relationships, that conflict is there as well. That is a brutal emotional position to be in regarding family versus partner. And if you're there, please hear this. You're not selfish for choosing a life that allows you to breathe. You're not betraying anyone by being honest about your heart. You can refuse to be controlled by fear. Now, how do you handle family or societal pressures without turning your life into a war? I'm going to give you a few grounded principles, not magic solutions, but principles. Principle number 1: you can love people and still not let them run your life, including your family. This is the hardest one for many people because we often think love equals obedience. But that's not love, that's fear. Principle number 2: some people need time, and some people may never come around. This is the grief part. And I wish I could tell you that time heals all wounds. But the truth is, it may not. And if you're holding out hope, I'm not here to kill that hope. I'm here to keep your hope from turning into self-abandonment. Because sometimes people stay in pain for years trying to earn acceptance that isn't coming. And that doesn't make you foolish. It makes you loyal. But loyalty without boundaries becomes a slow loss of self. Principle number 3: if you're going to have a hard conversation with your family or friends, be clear about what you're asking for. Sometimes people go to family and friends and say, I want you to accept this. But that's too big for where they are. Sometimes the first ask is, I'm not asking you to understand everything today. I'm asking you to treat me with respect. I'm asking you not to insult my partner. I'm asking you not to shame me. I'm asking you to stay connected, even if you disagree. That's a different conversation. And sometimes they still can't do that. But at least you're not begging for approval. You're asking for basic dignity. Principle number 4: protect your relationship from being or becoming the battlefield. This is huge. If disapproval becomes the central theme of your relationship, the couple stops being a couple. You become crisis managers. So you want to ask, how do we stay connected while the world is loud? That may mean agreeing on boundaries for visits, agreeing on what topics are off limits, agreeing on when you leave a gathering, agreeing on how you support each other after contact with family or friends who disagree with your relationship. Debriefing with one another matters. If you walk into judgment and then go home and pretend you're fine, that pressure doesn't disappear. It leaks. It leaks into intimacy. It leaks into conflict. It leaks into emotional distance. So don't underestimate the power of simply saying, hey, that was a lot. Are you okay? Are we okay? Now I want to pivot here because we have to talk about something important. Not all discomfort is harm, but not all discomfort is just part of love either. Let's talk about how to tell the difference. This part matters a lot because people in non-traditional relationships often get trapped in one of two extremes. Extreme number one, everything is harm, everything is oppression, everything is toxic. Extreme number two, this is just the price of love. I just have to tolerate it. So let's bring it back to something grounded. Healthy discomfort. Healthy discomfort is usually the discomfort of growth. It sounds like, this is new and I'm adjusting. This challenges my old beliefs. I'm learning how to communicate better. I'm learning how to set boundaries with those I care about. I'm learning how not to hide. I'm learning how not to be afraid. Harm is different. Harm is when you are consistently shrinking, silenced, or destabilized. Harm sounds like this. I cannot speak without being punished. I'm constantly walking on eggshells. My boundaries are mocked. I'm pressured into things I don't want. My identity is treated like an inconvenience. I'm isolated from support. I'm made to feel guilty for just existing. And here's a big one. If you're using the word love to justify suffering that is eroding you, we need to slow down. Because love is not supposed to erase you. Now let's talk about polyamorous relationships specifically for a moment. Polyamory can be healthy, and poly can also be chaotic and harmful when it's being used as a cover for avoidance, manipulation, or unresolved attachment issues. So the question is not, is poly right or wrong? The question is this relationship structure being lived with honesty, consent, respect, and care? Because poly done with integrity is built on transparency, boundaries, emotional regulation, communication, and consent. Poly done without integrity often looks like secrecy, coercion, emotional chaos, rules that only protect one person, and avoidance of real commitment while demanding emotional labor. So if you're listening and you feel confused, drained, or constantly destabilized, I'm not here to label your relationship. I'm here to validate your nervous system. If your body feels unsafe, Listen to your body. That matters. If you're in a relationship where you are constantly trying to earn basic respect, that's not love, that's survival. Now, let me add something for the people who don't feel brave. You don't have to blow up your life today, but I challenge you to be honest about what's happening inside of you, because ignoring it does not make it go away. It just makes you lonelier. And you deserve better than loneliness inside your own relationship. Now, I want to move into endings, because sometimes relationships do not work out and they end. And endings carry extra weight when culture, religion, and identity are involved. Let's talk about something people don't talk about enough. Sometimes love is real and the relationship still ends. Sometimes you do your best and it still doesn't work. Sometimes you outgrow each other. Sometimes trust breaks. Sometimes the pressure becomes too much. Sometimes you realize you've been surviving, not thriving. And when divorce comes into the picture, the shame can be heavy, especially in religious communities. In some religious frameworks, divorce is treated like failure. And I want to be careful here. I respect faith. I respect religious values. I respect people who hold marriage sacred. But we also have to be honest. Some people stay in relationships that are crushing them, including me. In hindsight, I have stayed in more than my share of relationships much longer than I should have. Relationships that assisted in the destruction of my self-esteem, my values, my ethics, and who I was as a person. But I was in love and carried the hope that things would get better. I've been divorced 3 times, and each one took a small part of my life that I will never get back. But each one also made me stronger and made me into the person I am today. And I truly love that person. I have no regrets, partially because the person I am today allowed me to find my current partner, whom I love and cherish. There are many reasons couples stay together in relationships that are crushing. They think a higher power will be disappointed. They think their community will abandon them. They were taught that enduring pain is holy and righteous. And that's where things get dangerous, because faith was never meant to be a weapon against your mental health. And marriage was never meant to be a prison. Now, does that mean divorce is always the answer? No, of course not. Sometimes a relationship can be repaired. Sometimes counseling, coaching, communication, boundaries can change everything. But sometimes the most faithful, honest choice is to admit this is not healthy. This is not safe. This is not repairable. This is not the life I want. And if you're a person who has wrestled with religious shame around divorce, I want to offer you a reframe. What if divorce is not always failure? What if sometimes divorce is the moment someone stops living a lie? What if sometimes divorce is the moment someone chooses truth over appearances? And for people in interracial, LGBTQ plus or polyamorous relationships, endings can carry additional layers, such as, now my family will say I told you so. Now my community will judge me. Now people will use my pain as proof. Now I feel alone again. That fear keeps people stuck. So if you're in a relationship that is not working and you feel trapped because you don't want to give anyone evidence, please hear this. Your life is not a courtroom. You don't have to stay in pain to prove a point. You don't have to sacrifice your future to protect your pride. And you don't have to carry shame for a chapter that ended. So let's start wrapping things up here. This episode is not about pressuring you to change or forcing you to make a choice between your partner or your family or society. You are allowed to move at your own pace. You are allowed to have peace and protect your peace. You are allowed to be happy and loved and to love. And you are allowed to build your life quietly, gently, steadily, because it is your life. You own it. One of the things I try to teach as a life coach is progress over perfection. You don't have to be perfect. Even small steps make a difference. And sometimes progress looks like this. I'm going to stop minimizing what hurts me. I'm going to stop pretending I'm fine. I'm going to stop letting another person control me. If there's one thing I want you to take from this episode, it's this. If your love does not fit the script, that does not make it wrong. It makes it real. And real love takes work, not because it's broken, but because life, including one's heart, is complex. If you want help sorting through boundaries, communication, conflict, family pressure, divorce, shame, identity stress, or rebuilding your confidence, that's the work I do. And you know how to find me. ClarkCoachingServices.com. Thank you for spending this time with me. Be gentle with yourself today. And remember, love is not proven by suffering. Love is proven by respect, honesty, safety, and the freedom to be fully human. Take care.